The return of Trump represents more than a political event. It reflects a deeper social reckoning with identity, fear, power, and the vulnerability we often avoid as a culture. In his second term, President Trump has prioritized cultural issues, focusing on dismantling diversity, equity, and inclusion DEI initiatives across U.S. government and society. His administration has issued executive orders to eliminate DEI programs, ban critical race theory, and reassert a binary gender policy. These measures have been framed as a return to merit-based systems and patriotic education via the reinstated 1776 Commission. Critics argue that Trump's aggressive rollback of progressive policies mirrors Jim Crow or ideologies and threatens democratic values. The Guardian, the Washington Post. Trump's re-election has also intensified global concerns regarding human rights and democratic stability. Civil rights organizations like Human Rights Watch have raised alarms over the potential human rights abuses that a second Trump presidency could entail. Trump's authoritarian approach has been long observed, but his second term promises an escalation in rhetoric and action against groups he deems adversarial, including immigrants, racial justice protesters, and political dissenters. His administration is expected to implement comprehensive deregulation of climate policies, aiming to dismantle what he describes as constraints on America's greatness. Nation of change. AP News. The psychological impact of Trump's policies and rhetoric has been profound, particularly among marginalized communities. Research has shown that exposure to racially charged rhetoric and policies can lead to increased stress levels and mental health issues among affected populations. For instance, a marked rise in emergency room visits and stress diagnoses was observed among people from countries targeted by the Muslim ban executive order. This underscores the real human costs of such policies. Open edition journals. Ephraim Agassi, Mindside News, Chicago Sun-Times. Trump's return has also sparked anxiety and fear among immigrants. His administration's promises to roll back protections for marginalized groups signal potential policy shifts reminiscent of the challenges faced during his previous term. Reports indicate that the LGBTQ+ community, especially trans youth, are experiencing heightened distress and vulnerability following the election. The Atlantic, Mindsight News, Nation of Change. Ephraim Agassi, Nation of Change. The cultural and political climate under Trump's leadership has led to a reassessment of roles among key political organizers. After Trump's re-election in 2024, many black women are rethinking their roles as America's reliable political organizers. While Trump engaged in racially charged rhetoric and policies, he managed to win against Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris, securing the popular vote. This outcome has led some black women to feel disillusioned and to prioritize their mental health over continued intense political organization. AP News. Trump's administration has also been characterized by a culture of retribution. He is undertaking a massive expansion of presidential power, ignoring or violating federal laws, regulations, and the Constitution, according to American legal scholars. He has threatened, signed executive actions, and ordered investigations into his political opponents, critics, and organizations aligned with the Democratic Party. He has politicized the civil service, undertaking mass layoffs of government employees to recruit workers more loyal to himself. He has ended the post-Watergate norm of Justice Department independence, weaponizing it and ordering it to target his political enemies. His actions against civil society have been described by legal experts and hundreds of political scientists as authoritarian and contributing to democratic backsliding, negatively impacting free speech and the rule of law. Nation of Change. Los Angeles Times. Wikipedia. In this context, the return of Trump is not just a political event, but a reflection of deeper societal issues. It challenges us to confront our collective identity, fears, and the power dynamics that shape our society. It calls for a reckoning with the vulnerability we often avoid, urging us to engage in meaningful conversations and actions that address the root causes of division and inequality. Is the future, regardless of political sides, depends not on who sits in power, but on our individual courage to choose empathy, accountability, and meaningful connection over fear, shame, and division. It is through this lens that we can begin to heal and build a more inclusive and just society. The mystery behind Trump's influence lies in how he mirrors back the unhealed divides in our nation and the human need for certainty in uncertain times. In the years since Donald Trump first descended that golden escalator, his presence has not merely been a political phenomenon, it has been a cultural mirror. He has reflected back to us the fractures we often try to ignore, the racial wounds never fully healed, the economic anxieties simmering beneath the surface, and the deep-seated fears of a rapidly changing world. Trump's rhetoric, characterized by its populist, nationalistic, and confrontational style, has capitalized on these divides, offering a sense of certainty to those feeling left behind by globalization and cultural shifts. Wikipedia. His appeal taps into a longing for a bygone era, one where hierarchies were clear and identities were unchallenged. This nostalgia is not just about economics or policy, it's about a perceived loss of cultural dominance. Trump's messaging has often emphasized themes of crisis and division, framing complex issues in binary terms, and casting himself as an outsider, fighting against a corrupt political establishment. Wikipedia. This approach resonates deeply with individuals who feel their identities are under siege. For many, Trump's rhetoric validates their experiences and fears, providing a clear narrative in a world that feels increasingly complex and unpredictable. His emphasis on loyalty and national pride offers a sense of belonging and purpose, especially to those who feel marginalized by the current socio-political climate. However, this mirroring also exposes the darker undercurrents of American society. By amplifying fears and grievances, Trump's influence has deepened existing divides, making it more challenging to find common ground. The rise of tribalism, where political affiliations become core to one's identity, has been exacerbated, leading to increased polarization and a decline in civil discourse. MIT Press Direct. In these uncertain times, the allure of certainty is powerful. Trump's straightforward, albeit often controversial messaging cuts through the noise, offering clear answers and scapegoats. This simplicity is appealing in a world overwhelmed by complexity and nuance. Yet it also risks oversimplifying issues and ignoring the multifaceted nature of societal challenges. As we navigate the future, it's essential to recognize the role of leaders like Trump in reflecting societal divides. Understanding this dynamic can help us address the root causes of division and work towards a more inclusive and empathetic society. It requires acknowledging the fears and uncertainties that drive people towards such figures and finding ways to offer hope and clarity without resorting to divisive rhetoric. In conclusion, Trump's influence serves as a mirror, reflecting both the strengths and vulnerabilities of our nation. By confronting these reflections with honesty and compassion, we can begin to heal the divides and build a future grounded in unity and understanding. Portions. You said, please expand it to the 3K words. Don't add any heading. The future, regardless of political sides, depends not on who sits in power, but on our individual courage to choose empathy, accountability, and meaningful connection over fear, shame, and division. ChatGPT said, the future, regardless of political sides, depends not on who sits in power, but on our individual courage to choose empathy, accountability, and meaningful connection over fear, shame, and division. In an era marked by political polarization and social unrest, the path forward requires a collective commitment to these values. Empathy enables us to understand and share the feelings of others, fostering a sense of unity and compassion. Accountability ensures that actions are aligned with ethical standards and that individuals take responsibility for their behavior. Meaningful connection bridges divides, allowing for constructive dialogue and collaboration. Historical figures like Nelson Mandela exemplify the power of these principles. Mandela's leadership during South Africa's transition from apartheid was rooted in empathy and a commitment to reconciliation, demonstrating that moral courage can lead to profound social change. A word pathway. Rosy-cheeked. Similarly, the concept of omoluabi in Yoruba culture emphasizes good character, integrity, and community responsibility, highlighting the importance of empathy and accountability in governance. Wikipedia. In contemporary politics, leaders who prioritize empathy and accountability can effectively address societal challenges. For instance, during the COVID-19 pandemic, empathetic leadership was crucial in communicating public health measures and supporting affected communities. Newsdeal. Moreover, fostering meaningful connections across political and social divides can mitigate polarization. Engaging in open, respectful conversations allows for the exchange of diverse perspectives and the building of mutual understanding. Ultimately, the responsibility for shaping a just and inclusive future lies with each individual. By embracing empathy, holding ourselves and others accountable, and seeking genuine connections, we can overcome fear, shame, and division, paving the way for a more harmonious society. Sourcing. The future, regardless of political sides, depends not on who sits in power, but on our individual courage to choose empathy, accountability, and meaningful connection over fear, shame, and division. And yet, we live in a world that keeps trying to convince us otherwise. We're constantly told that the solutions to our problems will be found in someone else's leadership, someone else's plan, someone else's ability to rescue or reform. It's easier to believe that if the right person is in office, then everything will somehow align, that our pain, our confusion, our uncertainty will be resolved from the top down. But that's not how healing works. That's not how wholeness happens. And that's certainly not how change takes root in the soul of a community. True transformation happens from the inside out, from the ground up. It's in our relationships, our choices, our ability to lean into uncomfortable conversations and choose humanity over hostility. That's where the future is shaped, not in the hands of a single figure, but in the hearts of millions who dare to live with intention. The courage to choose empathy in a world wired for defensiveness is radical. We have been conditioned to armor up, to approach disagreement as a battlefield instead of an invitation to understand. Empathy requires us to soften, to suspend judgment long enough to listen, and to see people not as enemies but as fellow humans carrying stories we may never fully know. And while empathy doesn't mean we agree, it does mean we are willing to hold space for complexity. It means we're willing to show up with open hearts in a culture that rewards closed minds. Choosing accountability is equally brave. In a world obsessed with blame, accountability asks us to look inward first, to ask, where am I contributing to the problem? Where have I chosen silence over integrity, comfort over truth? Accountability is not about self-shaming, it's about self-responsibility. It's about owning our impact, not just our intentions. And it's about being willing to change when we've caused harm, not because we've been forced to, but because we know we must. Then there is meaningful connection, the heart of it all. In an age of digital noise and performative outrage, authentic connection feels rare and sacred. We scroll, we tweet, we react, but rarely do we pause to truly connect. And yet it is connection that heals. It is being seen, known, and valued that allows people to soften their armor. It's the difference between performing our values and actually living them, between showing up and simply speaking out. Connection doesn't happen by accident. It takes effort, vulnerability, and the willingness to risk being misunderstood. It means telling the truth even when our voice trembles. It means staying at the table when everything in us wants to walk away. It means honoring the humanity in others even when their views challenge our comfort. This is not weakness, it's strength in its purest form. Fear, shame, and division are the easy choices. They're the shortcuts. Fear tells us to protect ourselves at all costs, to retreat into echo chambers, and label those who disagree as threats. Shame convinces us that we are either better than or worse than others, never equal, never worthy, never whole. And division feeds on these stories. It thrives when we reduce people to caricatures instead of honoring their complexity. But when we choose empathy, we interrupt fear. When we choose accountability, we silence shame. And when we choose connection, we close the gap that division desperately tries to widen. These are not passive choices. They are daily acts of courage. They're the kind of decisions that don't make headlines, but do change lives. This moment in history is asking something of us. Not just to vote, protest, or post, but to wake up. To ask deeper questions. To examine the stories we've inherited and decide which ones we want to keep carrying. Because whether we like it or not, we are shaping the future right now with every conversation, every decision, every silence, every stand. And the question is, what kind of future are we shaping? Will it be one marked by defensiveness and denial, or one rooted in curiosity and compassion? Will it be a future where people are punished for their pain, or one where healing is possible, even across the deepest divides? Will we keep chasing power for the sake of control? Or will we begin to redefine power as the capacity to create belonging? It's easy to get caught up in the theater of politics, to believe that our fate rests in someone else's hands. But power is not a throne. It's a torch. It's meant to be passed, not hoarded. And every time we choose empathy, every time we hold ourselves accountable, every time we choose connection over convenience, we are carrying that torch. We are lighting the way for others to follow. This doesn't mean we turn away from injustice or silence our convictions. Quite the opposite. It means we show up fully, that we speak with clarity, not cruelty, that we listen with humility, not hostility, that we fight for what is right, not from a place of superiority, but from a place of deep love for our shared humanity. There will always be leaders who rise and fall. Policies will shift. Parties will evolve, but what will remain is the impact we make in the lives of those around us. The children who watch how we treat people who disagree with us. The friends who witness how we navigate conflict. The communities who feel either safe or unsafe based on the spaces we create. The invitation is not to disengage from the world, but to re-engage with more depth and more discernment. to show up not with outrage alone, but with a deep-rooted commitment to healing. To recognize that progress is messy and nonlinear, and that sometimes the most revolutionary thing we can do is to love people who don't vote like us, live like us, or think like us. Empathy doesn't mean we abandon our boundaries. Accountability doesn't mean we live in perpetual guilt. Connection doesn't mean we tolerate abuse. What it does mean is that we stop seeing the world in black and white. That we reject the lie that us versus them is the only way forward. That we recognize the humanity in every person, even when it's hard. But there's the truth. Every time we reduce a person to their politics, we miss the chance to understand the pain that shapes their perspective. Every time we write someone off because they've made mistakes, we deny the possibility of redemption. The same redemption we so often seek for ourselves. And every time we let fear write our story, we lose the chance to write something braver. The future asks more of us than certainty. It asks for curiosity. It asks us to sit with the discomfort of not having all the answers. It asks us to hold both truth and grace, to name harm when it happens, but also to extend the possibility of change, to build bridges even when the waters below feel rough and uncertain. We don't need perfect people to lead us forward. We need present people. People who are willing to stay in the room when things get hard. People who are more committed to healing than to being right. People who understand that dignity is not a reward for good behavior. It is a birthright. And when we treat others with dignity, we begin to remember our own. We are not powerless. In fact, we are more powerful than we've been led to believe. Every time we choose to have a hard conversation instead of avoiding it, we practice leadership. Every time we admit we were wrong and make it right, we create space for transformation. Every time we choose to see the whole person instead of just the part that offends us, we make the world a little safer. This work is not easy. It will ask everything of us. It will stretch us, challenge us, and sometimes break our hearts, but it will also build something beautiful. Something worth passing on. A world where people are valued not for what they produce, believe, or look like, but because they exist. A world where power is used to lift others up, not hold them down. A world where fear no longer gets the final word. So when we look ahead, when we think about the kind of future we want to live in, let us remember this. It will not be shaped by any one leader, but by the millions of daily decisions made in quiet, unseen moments, by the courage to speak with kindness, to admit when we've missed the mark, and to stay open when everything in us wants to shut down. This is how we build the future, not with fear, but with faith, not with shame, but with sacred responsibility, not with division, but with radical belonging, the kind of belonging that says, you are welcome here, even in your imperfection. The kind of belonging that doesn't ask you to change who you are, but invites you to grow into all you were meant to be. The question isn't who will lead us. The question is, will we lead ourselves? Will we lead our families, our communities, our hearts? Will we be brave enough to choose empathy over ease, accountability over apathy, connection over comfort? Because in the end, that's the kind of leadership the world needs most. Not the kind that demands applause, but the kind that makes healing possible. And if we each choose that, not once, but over and over again, then no matter who holds the microphone, the future will belong to us.